Hey everyone, it's Gavin. Do you like rhythm games? Cause I don't. I fucking suck at Taiko and Osu. Luckily, Rhythm Heaven was made for babies like me with simple 2-button controls. Even my triple amputee friend can play. Shame he's deaf though. In all honesty, I decided to play Rhythm Heaven Fever because it looked fun, and it was. A lot of the games were catchy and fun to get through, and I specifically wouldn't let myself get past most of them without superbing them, with exceptions. I even managed to perfect a few. But that doesn't really mean all the games are great or even really good. Though, my thoughts are mostly going to remain to myself, as I didn't plan on doing a review until I realized that there was a handy dandy list of how I rate all the games right here. Tier lists may be easy, but damn are they effective. So what I'll be doing is giving a brief breakdown of every game and explaining why I put them where I did on the list. I have a few criteria just to keep things in check. First thing, the music. This one might seem obvious, but yes, I will be rating the OST of Fever coinciding with the game I'm talking about. Keep in mind the music is crazy subjective, so unless you're a music major, I don't want to hear any type of craziness because I'm right and you're wrong. The second thing is also pretty obvious, gameplay, how fun the button presses and mechanics of each game are. Now I know that might sound a little weird considering Rhythm Heaven's 2-button controls, but trust me it'll make sense when I talk about it. The third thing is visuals, how well the visuals portray the gameplay and the music. This actually won't even be mentioned for most games because in general the visuals for each game are pretty good, though do keep it in the back of your mind. Starting off simple with Hole in One. I get why this is the first game you play. It only uses one button and has mostly evenly timed inputs, so it's an easy intro to the gameplay. The song is also great, starting off slow, hitting a faster pace in the middle, and ending slow again makes it for a perfectly paced experience. Plus the song is really catchy. Easy S tier. Next is Screwbot Factory. The second game you play naturally introduces the second button you use by having you press A and B together. Speaking of which, letting go of A and B might not be easy to identify, as the song doesn't really give you a lot of hints, but the timing for the gray bots becomes second nature surprisingly quickly. The white bots are a little harder though. The visuals aren't much help, as without game knowledge you're probably gonna hit a lot of earlies and lates. Though, once you find out the timing, everything just feels like it flows. It's really a game you have to play at least twice before you really love it. Plus the song's beat is kind of an earworm. A tier. Next is Seesaw. This is the first game I really fell in love with, mostly because of the voice clips. They make every hit of the seesaw more impactful, and are just really pleasant to listen to. You only have to press A for this game, you're more paying attention to the different timings the game gives you, all of which are pretty reactable thanks to the visuals clearly showing what's a quicker beat, what's a slower one, and when they're about to change. Except for the high jumps, those might catch you just a little off guard. The song is catchy, and it goes from slow to fast back and forth so many times that it really gets the blood pumping. S tier. Next is Double Date, another react-focused game. You gotta react accordingly to the beats of 3 different balls. You get more than enough time to react, and the song is slow-paced enough that you never feel like one beat is overpowering the others. Each ball's bounce acts as a sound cue, letting your brain know what to expect, and the song is catchy. Though the song is also way more laid back than other games, so it's not particularly engaging to me. Still S tier. Now for our first remix. These take the 4 games you just played and put them all together into one game. Remix 1 has absolutely great music behind it, which is why a slightly faster beat is excusable. The game lets you know early on that your reactions are going to have to be on point. The only downside is that the faster beat can be a bit cruel for the Double Date section, especially with basketballs. Though otherwise it's a pretty good game, and the beach aesthetic is great. S tier. At this point, you might feel like I've given too many S's, which is fair, so to rectify this, I'm actually going to code Rhythm Heaven Fever in real time to make the rest of the games worse. That's the explanation I'm going to go with for why the rest of the games are worse. Unfortunately, Forklifter completely goes against the joke I just made. Only A presses are needed to stab the beans? Brown peas? I actually have no idea what the character is eating in this game. Anyway, this game requires slightly faster inputs than most games have asked you at this point, but these are mostly carried by the song. Specifically the keyboard, it goes way harder than it needs to, and the instruments actually mostly play in time with when your inputs are coming up. The music and gameplay mesh so well that I basically have to give this an S tier. Fortunately, Tambourine completely proves what I was talking about with the joke I made, which at this point was so long ago that you should probably go back and watch it again, so you can give me watch time. Anyway, Tambourine is the first of what I call the repeat after me games. Forklifter had strong elements of this, but you'd only get like 3 inputs to repeat at most, and even that was rare. Tambourine asks you to remember and repeat a 7-input long string that changes its beat and requires you to press A and or A and B. The song is okay, but nothing special. It coincides with the inputs, but it's not like that'll help you, because by the time you hear the notes, your window for pressing has already gone. And maybe it's because I was playing this game with a funny controller, but I found that not all my A and B presses would register. Needless to say, it's not very good. Tambourine is one of the worst games here. D tier. Board Meeting actually brings us back to some quality with a side of social commentary. Only A presses here, and the sound effects make them satisfying to land like in Seesaw. Outside of that, there's not much to talk about here. The song is serviceable, and your goal is to end the beat with some pretty simple indicators. It's short and sweet. A tier. Monkey Watch is the first of what I call the keep the beat games. These are games that require near constant A presses to play, and fuck are they annoying to get through. Monkey Watch gave me so much trouble the first time around that I left without superbing it at first. But after listening to it on repeat for days, I had the beat down enough to get a superb. This is also the first game to introduce a visual obstruction, which can be as small as an annoyance or as big as a hindrance. It punishes players that get help from the game's visuals, at which point you might wonder what the point of the visuals even is. Sometimes I dance to these games to help me get through them. Does that mean Rhythm Heaven Fever would tie me to my chair if it could? Anyway, Monkey Watch's one saving grace is that the song is pretty good, though at this stage it's not helping much. C tier. Now for Remix 2. Remix 2 has the unfortunate circumstance of having two of the worst games in it, so it was kinda doomed from the start. It has some pretty alright music behind it, but I don't really vibe with the rock aesthetic. C tier. Working Dough is the second Repeat After Me game, and just like Tambourine, the strings are too long, but a new problem arises in how fast you have to press A. Imagine trying to remember every combination of A and AB and what tempo they were going at. The song is really catchy though, so it's a slightly better version of Tambourine. C tier. Now for kinda my favorite game in this entire collection, Built to Scale. Built to Scale is almost entirely about reaction. You react to when it's your turn to bounce or hit, and you react to when the tempo changes. It's insanely easy to keep up with as long as you pay attention. And for a song that repeats the same group of notes, it's oddly really fun to listen to with the sound effects. Plus, this is one of only 2 games here that I've managed to perfect the first try. Easiest S tier so far. Next is Air Rally, another keep the beat game. This one is much better than Monkey Watch for one simple reason. You only have to press A on every other beat. So while every sound effect from Monkey Watch is an A press, Air Rally gives you more prep time. At least that's how it feels. Actually timing the 2 games, you see that their A presses are almost identical in actual timing. However, Air Rally clearly gives you an in-between beat to measure your A presses, while on Monkey Watch you've got to count beats in your head. Plus, Monkey Watch still has more inputs. Air Rally's song is also pretty upbeat and goes along with the game's callouts. Already improving, it gets the first B tier. And as soon as we start improving, we get thrown right back into the mud. Figure Fighter is a strange game, and I feel like I'm the only person who's experienced the oddities of this game, which makes me think that's because I'm emulating this game with a funny controller. So there are 2 problems with Figure Fighter. For one, this is a game where your character acts on beat despite whenever you actually pressed A. This creates a problem where being off beat can look insanely jarring. You press a button, you see your character punch but nothing comes out of it. This throws me off so badly. The other problem is probably just a me thing, but I swear the timing for when you're supposed to repeat the action is inconsistent. The quick 1-2s always elude me. Oh yeah, this is another Repeat After Me game, though that says something about its quality. I don't know. I'm fully willing to admit that I exist in the bubble universe where Figure Fighter is a bane on humanity, but this game always gives me trouble. D tier. Remix 3 is mostly good. The song is actually the first vocal track in Fever, which can distract from the gameplay a bit, but otherwise is a pretty good song. Though as you might be expecting, Figure Fighter lets the game down, especially the quick 1-2s that come during the air rally sections. The screen actually cuts to black and barely shows your second punch. Mostly good game, but Figure Fighter makes it annoying to get through, and the cooking aesthetic is whatever. B tier. This is the first time since the first 4 that we get a straight batch of really good games, starting with Ringside, which is probably one of the most popular games in the franchise. This game has some simple call and response with things like, all you really gotta do is react. Even the song is simple and catchy. The only real downside is that the call has strange timing for the double A press response that I can't quite pin down. Aside from that, A tier. Packing Pest is another one of my favorite games. It's a simple rhythm, candy spider, candy spider. You can sometimes get 2 spiders, but there's always an easy call out for them, and it'll always be a candy into however many spiders. When the presses are this easy to read, it makes it way easier to get immersed in the song, which I think works fantastically. It allows me to play the game like how I would actually listen to a song, which, by the way, this song is a banger. Not sure what else to explain, Packing Pest is great, S tier. Micro Row is another keep the beat game, and it's actually one I rather like. For one, it has one of the best songs for a keep the beat, and secondly, I much prefer the animated movements of the cells to something like the jolt of the clock hand in Monkey Watch. It also has a call out for a triple press, but it isn't too fast, so it's easy to do. It's a good enough game, B tier. Samurai Slice is a call and response, like Ringside. You press A in accordance to when a demon appears, or A and B when many do. It's a pretty easy beat to keep up with, and it quickly becomes second nature when to press A. The song is also pretty good, and makes good use of the trumpets to feel triumphant. My only gripe is with the visuals. Bigger demons have the same timing as smaller ones, but with the bigger size it kinda throws me off when to cut because it looks like they should be earlier. There's also a part where a series of images will show up on screen, almost entirely blocking your view. Had it not been for the visuals, I would have considered it for an S, but unfortunately I have to give it an A. Now when it comes to Remix 4, it's my favorite remix in Fever. Its song is absolutely fantastic, it slaps throughout the whole game, and it even incorporates instruments to fit with the Japanese theme. Every game here flows into each other naturally. The lowest game on the list included is Micro Row, and its sections aren't even bad. There are also no dumb mechanics, no visual blocking so switching between games unexpectedly. Remix 4 is straight fun. S tier. Catch of the Day is one of the weirdest games here. You have to catch 3 different kinds of fish. The smallest fish is a simple rhythm of 1, 2, 3, but both the larger versions have a delay to them. The yellowfish's delay can be annoying when you're not ready for it, but you get used to it eventually. It becomes second nature. But the bluefish is such a long delay that whatever rhythm it had has completely left me. There aren't too many bluefish, and like I said, you get used to the yellow ones, but otherwise it's just an alright game. The song is fine. C tier. Next is Flipper Flop, back to a keep the beat game. Flipper Flop has 2 standout problems. The first being that after a certain callout, a triple A press is needed, and then not even a second later you have to press A and B together consecutively. Such a quick transition catches me off guard almost every time I play this game without practice, or when I'm trying to get a perfect and my brain strokes out. The other problem is with the A and B press. You have to press them consecutively from anywhere between 2 and 10 times, and with all those presses of 2 buttons, one of them is bound to be a mispress. Plus points off for making me hold my controller with a death grip. The song's alright. C tier. Luckily for Exhibition Match, Tambourine is just straight up a terrible game, because otherwise Exhibition Match would easily be the worst game here. With a grand total of 12 A presses during the entire game, and a mediocre string of beats that repeats itself over and over again, Exhibition Match commits to kind of just being super fucking boring. Even games like Figure Fighter are fun when they work, but Exhibition Match has no bright spots, it's just a snore throughout the entire thing. It's not even hard, D tier. Flockstep is another one of the better Keep the Beat games. The song is catchy, using a techno tune and serving as a nice track to listen to while trying to keep the beat. The A and B press callout is also nice, syncing perfectly with the A presses. The visuals are also just pleasing to the eyes, with a bunch of multicolored birds all stomping and jumping in sync. It's good, but still haunted by the difficulty of a Keep the Beat game. B tier. Remix 5 isn't good, but it's hard to hate. Having 2 Keep the Beat games in this package makes the difficulty skyrocket, and that doesn't even include the fact that 3 of the games here simply aren't very good. And remember how I said that in Remix 4 none of the games changed without warning? Well, Remix 5 thought it was going to be the jokester here by throwing in a completely random transition to Flockstep so fast that by the time you realize what's going on, you've already missed the first 1 or 2 inputs. But on the upside, the song for Remix 5 is absolutely fantastic, and the games here all pair pretty well with said song. Shame the actual games themselves suck. Plus the prehistoric aesthetic isn't really doing much. Like I said, hard to judge. Let's just say middle of the road and go B tier. Launch Party is pretty solid. There are 4 different timings for 4 different rockets, and 3 of them are really neat. The 4th, however, is barely even a timing. The other rockets all have countdown cues for when the button presses. The rocket that counts down from 1 obviously can't have a timing to it, so you just gotta hope that you remember the timing well enough. I've mostly got it down, but I still choke every now and again. The song is good enough though, and the 1 rockets are rare, so B tier. I hate Donk Donk. A lot. It's not even a bad game, but for some reason I absolutely can't nail down the timing of the consistent presses. The game switches between a double press beat and one that requires you to keep the beat, and it's just impossible for me. There's a visual obstruction near the end, and the song is just alright. D tier. Bossa Nova is a nice and relaxing song among a lot of upbeat and hype songs. You switch between a single press and a double press pretty naturally, so this game isn't anything soul-crushing. My only complaint is that the double press actually starts with a single press right out the transition, so it's kinda easy to mess up. The song is good, and sits as a nice relaxing backing track to the beat of the sound effects. Solid game, A tier. Love Rap is a unique game in that it has some of the most dialogue used as sound cues in the whole game. It's super distracting to have the beat timings determined by words. Not a lot to describe, it just really gets to me. It doesn't help that I don't like the song either. It's laid back like Bossa Nova, but just doesn't hit as hard. There's not a lot stand out bad about this game, it can sit and see, I just don't like it too much. Remix 6 has a pretty decent song behind it, though there's just something about the amusement park theme that doesn't quite click with me. As for the games, they transition between each other well, but Donk Donk and Love Rap aren't doing this remix any favors. B tier. Tap Troop is another Keep the Beat game. There are sections where the beat you keep is a little faster, and switching between the two is a little tough, but for the most part it's fine. Tap Troop is hard carried by its song though, which is an absolute banger. Solid B tier. Shrimp Shuffle is almost like a call and response game. You're constantly assuming that you'll be hitting a certain string, but every now and then you're thrown a slightly different one or a hesitation. This is a game mostly about paying attention. The song is really good and has a particularly hype part near the end that I like. The only downfall of this game is that it's a little hard to tell when you've hit a perfect button press and when you've hit a close press. I didn't even realize what I'd done wrong when I tried to perfect this game. All in all, it's good. A tier. Cheerleaders is great. The song is a banger and the concept is super cool. The game is a react kind of call and response, where there will be different callouts that end in a button press. The game will have callouts cross over with each other often, so it requires a lot of attention to what's coming up way ahead rather than what's about to hit you. This game also has a lot of dialogue, but where Love Rap fails, Cheerleaders makes the dialogue a part of the beat. In Love Rap, the amount of dialogue just changes how long you have to wait before you press A, but in Cheerleaders, your button press is ending the dialogue cue with the beat, so it actually feels integrated into the song. Like I said, Cheerleaders is great, S tier. Karate Man is a hard game. It's one of the longer games in FIFA with a ton of inputs. It's like Air Rally in that it's a keep the beat game, but it gives you a sound effect in between your presses to help you measure yourself. There's also a vocal track, and it can be a little distracting while trying to keep the beat, but only because the song is such a banger I keep trying to sing along while playing. This is actually a rare time I'll give a keep the beat game an A tier because it's just so hyped, the difficulty barely feels like an issue, and the hypeness actually kind of alleviates it. Remix 7 is a good game. The song is a really catchy techno theme, and it gets to use 4 games that are on the higher end of quality in this collection. But there's one thing here that keeps this remix out of A, and it's the thing that caused me to not only not superb this song, but actually straight up fail it multiple times. The rhythm for Tap Troop in Remix 7 is ever so slightly off from its original incarnation. It's such a slight difference that when I was consistently missing inputs for the Tap Troop sections, I was absolutely confused at what I was getting wrong. It makes me wonder why such a change was even necessary. Was it just to fuck with people subconsciously? Who knows. Point is, that one bit keeps the game from A tier and stops into B. Now we get into the sequels for games. I'll try not to repeat myself too often because for the most part, the sequels are just slightly different versions of the originals. Samurai Slice 2 is a more upbeat and fast version of 1. Still a solid game, and I put it above 1 because I prefer the sequel's version of the song more. This is gonna sound weird since I gave Working Dough a C, but Working Dough 2 is S tier. For one, there aren't nearly as many inputs. Where 1 tries to overwhelm you with inputs, 2 tries to trip you up by having very few inputs, but spacing them out in odd ways. It makes for a much more fun experience than the memory game that 1 is. Plus the song is still catchy, so it has that going for it. It's nice to see such a good turnaround for a game I previously considered to be below average. So remember when I said that Built to Scale was one of 2 games I perfected on the first try? Well, the other game was Built to Scale too. What can I say? I guess I was made for one thing in life. I like the sequel song a little bit more, so it goes above the original. Double Date 2 is a little harder than the original, but the balls that are thrown at you have much more variety. But the challenge is nice and I like the remix song better, so it goes above the original. Remix 8 is amazing. It has an absolutely fantastic vocal track that fits perfectly to the song and isn't too obstructive to the sound effects. Instead of only taking from the last 4 games of the remix of songs, it takes games from all across Fever and they all fit in pretty well. Song's a banger, games it uses are bangers, easy yes. Love Rap 2 is weird in that I think it has a better song than the original, but I have way more trouble with 2. It's possibly because it has way more inputs, but I just had the hardest time trying to superb it. I did it eventually though, so I'll put it above the original, though note the 2 are basically interchangeable because the difficulty of 2 kinda balances it out. Cheerleader 2 has a better song than the original and is a little bit harder, but the challenge is nice, above the original. I'd love to put Hole in One 2 over the original, but I think 2's version of the song is a little too much instrumentation going on compared to 1's simple banger. And the other reason it doesn't go over the original is because there's an input in this game that has a callout that's nearly inaudible with everything else that's going on, forcing it to nearly entirely rely on the visuals to even know what's happening. Screwball Factory 2 isn't as good as the original. Am I only saying that because Steve Gunnar made the rip for 1 a Nutshack mashup and 2 only had elements of Nutshack in it? No, I'm saying it because 2 had visual obstructions in it. Well, what was that first thing you asked about? Remix 9 is another great game. Like Remix 8, it uses games from all across Fever and has a fantastic vocal track. It's a little harder than most remixes though, so I'll put it on the lower end of S. Figure Fighter 2 is like Figure Fighter 1, but you can see less. I guess the song's a little better. The 2 games are basically interchangeable. Micro Row 2 actually pulls a rare one and adds a callout that wasn't present in the original, a double press. This makes the game a little bit harder, but adds a nice bit of variety to a keep the beat game, so I'll put it over the original. And then right after I call it rare, Packing Pest adds a callout that wasn't in the original. Though in Packing Pest's case, this callout makes the game worse. The callout is to just make the game with a consistent beat throw an offbeat input at you that doesn't feel natural or flow at all. Not helped by the fact that the game's beat as a whole has been made faster for the sequel, beating the Tap Troop Remake 7 problem, where the whole game just feels off. This actually goes an entire tier below the original. You hate to see it. Karate Man 2's version of the song just isn't as good. It's not as hype. Goes below the original. Remix 10 is great. It manages to implement every song in Fever into one really good remix. The one hang-up I have about Remix 10 is that it applies the Remix 7 line of thinking to nearly every game in the remix, and it's so against everything my brain is telling me that I still haven't beaten Remix 10 to this day. I'll do it eventually, but it sure is a steep mountain. B tier. Now I should probably mention that getting perfect isn't as easy as it should be. I don't mean that getting a perfect run is hard, which it is, but that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm actually talking about is the fact that Fever won't give you a perfect stamp unless you've rolled the RNG necessary to get the chance to do a perfect run. So if you've ever done a perfect run without the game explicitly telling you that you can, it won't be counted as a perfect, which sucks. If I wasn't playing on a PC-shaped Wii with save states, I wouldn't even be trying for the perfects. And that's Rhythm Heaven Fever. I've seen a lot of this series over the years, but never had the chance to play until recently, and I like my experience. Some games are obviously bigger than others, but for the most part I like the whole package. Would recommend. 8 out of 10 game. The Doom review? Oh, April Fool's next year. I don't know. Don't get your hopes up.